Ladies and gentlemen, it's lovely to see you all here today, and thank you very much indeed for coming along. I'd love to thank Dan for inviting me to come to Las Vegas. And now that I've signed up, instead of saying that this is your product, I can say that it's our product.
Yeah!
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about your immune systems. I'm going to tell you why they get attacked by viruses, by pathogens from all over the place. We're going to try and work out how many bacteria there could be in this room this afternoon. We'll have a guess at that number. And then we'll think about downstairs and how many bugs there could be down on that floor down there. They're all the one-armed bandits. So, let's go and talk about your immune system. Now, most people don't know that you've actually got two immune systems. You have what's known as an innate immunity, and you also have an adaptive immunity. And they are very different systems that you need to understand. The innate immune system is basically where microorganisms or toxins that successfully enter the organism encounter this innate immune system. And this system is made of all sorts of different components that are designed to fight off invading pathogens. However, this system does not give you long-term immunity against those pathogens. So if they come back again, you can get sick again. Unless your immune system can cope with them, you are likely to crash one more time. It's a little bit different with the adaptive immune system, which I'm sure you all understand. That's where your immune system gets probably vaccinated to give you the disease so that your immune system can understand it and memorize it. And by remembering the antigen, it stops it from coming back next time and quickly eliminates it from the system. So your adaptive immune system is what we understand about getting an infection, getting better, and then not suffering from that infection again. Now the problem is, in our modern world today, fungus, virus, bacteria, even parasites change their shapes and structures and are able to trick our immune system into thinking it's something different that they've never encountered before. And that means you can suffer from disease again. Now, I think it was in 1968, your Surgeon Commander General of the United States said, "We have conquered infectious disease." Nobody could have been more wrong, because since 1968, we've seen so many infectious organisms kill millions of people worldwide. And in the last 10 years alone, we've seen SARS, bird flu, chicken flu, pig flu, and all sorts of infectious organisms are now attacking all of us all of the time. So it's really important that you should understand how these two immune systems can help protect you and help you stay fit and healthy. So the immune system, the innate immune system, its response is basically non-specific. So it just reacts. If there's a toxin in the system, it will respond, and it will send out lots of chemical mediators and compounds to try and fight that infection right the way through your system. Now that exposure leads to an immediate maximal response, and you get cell-mediated response, but no immunological memory, and that's found in nearly all forms of life. So the innate immune system is in all of us. But what's interesting is that in your adaptive immune system, you get this specific response to that particular antigen. So it knows what it's looking at, it knows how to conquer it, and it knows how to keep you fit and healthy. And let's be honest, most times we're reasonably fit and healthy, but our immune system is working all the time. So you are now being attacked by hundreds of thousands of bacteria in this room. There's no argument about that. There's lots of pathogens down on the gaming floor. So your immune system is working overtime as it is. It doesn't matter where you go in your life in this world, you are being attacked by something in the air, on the things that we touch and feel, on everything we do during this day to day. We are being attacked by something. So you need a specific response. Unfortunately, with your adaptive immune system, there is a lag time. So even if you're catching a pathogen that you had in the past, it's quite possible for modern day pathogens to expand so astronomically and so quickly that you can still get ill even if it's a bug that you suffered from some years ago. So if you don't time it right, even this adaptive immune system can't respond quick enough and you will get sick until your immune system begins to take over and make you better. Again, we get cell-mediated and humoral responses, and this does lead to this immunological memory, and it's usually found only in jawed vertebrates, so that's people like us. We should be thankful that we have two immune systems, because in today's modern world, this is what the immune system does. If you look at your blood under dark field microscopy conditions, you'll see the red cells here in this particular subject are very stuck together. They're what we call roleoed. These are actually red cells, and you can see they look terrible. And here in the blood plasma, you can see there are lots of little things that are basically funguses, viruses, bacteria, cholesterol crystals. They can even be parasites in the blood that you can spot when you take a sample of blood and look at it under the scope. It's quite frightening when you see a parasite moving around in the bloodstream. And so your immune system is designed to deal with all of those types of pathogens. And it's not a very good picture, but there is a couple of white cells in here. There's one here, there's one here. And these particular organisms come around, they're macrophages, and they come around and eat everything up. So if you're a very fit and healthy individual, your blood should be looking like that. So here you've got nice round red cells. You can see, look, the blood plasma is pretty clean, there's not too much rubbish in there. So that's what we're all trying to achieve. When we're fit and healthy, most of us will look like that, unless we've just drunk a load of coffee, which you did a few minutes ago. So already your cholesterol level is rising. That's what happens when you drink coffee. Your blood is beginning to go a little bit like this, and you probably need to do something to try and control that. So perhaps you might want to take a couple of capsules before we finish. We'll see. So, this is how your immune system works. These are the macrophages. Their job is to go around and eat up all of that rubbish in your blood. So they come along very slowly, and they basically look at the bacteria and they swallow them up. They take them into the vesicle here, and they basically just kill the bacteria, and they get destroyed, and that's the end of them. So if you don't have these things in your immune system, you are going to get sick very, very quickly. And it's all a question of balance, and how many of these do you have in the system, and how quickly can these macrophages get around and clear up the infection that you're suffering from. So, unfortunately, in today's modern world, you know as well as I do, that we live in an environment where increased urbanization and population growth means that germs and bugs can travel the world very, very quickly. They actually travel faster than we do. And of course, in the United Kingdom where I'm from, I hope you can understand my accent. Good. And in the US, we let in millions of people across our borders every single year. That's very good, we're very generous, and they bring their luggage in, but they also bring their bugs in. So you can see bugs that are starting on the other side of the world in Australia or China, and within a very short period of time, they can certainly be here on the west coast of America, and you can see that they can penetrate right the way across your continent. Look at what happened in Fukushima just a year ago. Within a few days, the radiation levels here on the west coast were 100 times higher than they should be. And that continued for a period of 6 to 7 months. So we know that pathogens and environmental toxins can travel around the world very, very fast. And now that you've all learned how to write off your gas costs, I guess you're going to be putting a lot more gas in the cars, and that obviously also causes a number of environmental concerns. But never mind, you've got the old Shell fracking gas, so I think your future energy is probably guaranteed, which is good. But let's see whether that causes any environmental damage. Hopefully it won't. That was my political bit. Okay. Right, so air, sea and road travel have never been more accessible, so people just literally move all around the world. I mean, I know you've got road warriors in the States on aeroplanes all the time, traveling around the country. And these are the people that bring their bugs around with them. So even bugs in New York State are different to bugs in California and Nevada. Every state will have its own type of bacteria, fungus and virus that travel everywhere. Crowded environments. This is relatively crowded. It's an air conditioning system which is quite dry, and therefore bugs can be spread around here very quickly. If you were to go downstairs into the gaming room, I really wouldn't sit on one of those seats if I were you. I would be fairly careful how long you spend down there. And interestingly, the cause of those infections is still one of the most frequent reasons for people to go to a doctor's office, because they've got a bug. Now, the problem really in today's modern world began with SARS in 2002, which did show that air travel meant that those viruses could come from China right the way across the world into the United States. And I was watching the television right the way through the summer, where the number of cases were going up and up and up across the world. It never became a pandemic, fortunately. And at that stage, my company, who made stabilized Olsen as our primary agent, we were asked to submit that to the Center for Disease Control to test it against SARS virus. It was very successful. It proved to be able to kill SARS, but unfortunately, every single drug company in the world put in about 400 agents each, and they never really got round to asking us to go on and do further tests to prove that it could be a saver of populations. But we do know that it definitely kills the SARS virus. They say the average public transport seat is home to about 3 million bugs of at least 70 different species. So for those of you who've got children, do be careful with them when you put them on the school bus. We don't really want them to come home with a bug. But of course, where do coughs and colds begin? They begin at school. The kids come home 2 or 3 weeks after they've started a new term. They're coughing and sneezing. They pass it on to mum and dad, onto the grandparents. The whole family basically gets infected. And that's what happens time and time again. The pyramid of infection starts at school. The good thing about the new immune product is that you can give it to young children. They can take it safely above the age of 7 years old, okay? Up to that age, your immune system is still reacting, still forming. So between the ages of 3 and 7, we would say a half a dose. Okay? So most people, when they go about their daily work, they might wash their hands in the washroom. If you ever come to the UK, one sad statistic is that 75% of men do not wash their hands when they come out of the washroom. Now, it's probably better than that in the US because you've got these very clever machines, but we've got them as well now, and our rates of cleanliness have not gone up in the last 5 years, sadly. And you know what happens when you come out from the washroom? Guys tend to do this, they rub their nose and then they rub their eyes, and the ladies, they do their hair like this. All of that is being able to transmit bugs, disease. So eventually, one of those is going to get into your immune system, and if you've got a weakened immunity, you're going to get sick. And across the world, there's something like 2 billion individuals who carry a systemic infectious disease. Now usually this is from countries like Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria. There's a lot of Bulgarians in Las Vegas. They're all driving the taxis. And Russians in particular. And all of these groups of people go into Mexico. I believe there's a lot of Mexican guys. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just saying that these populations have what's known as an endemic problem with things like tuberculosis. So there are hundreds of millions, in fact 2 billion people who have the potential to infect other people wherever they are in the world simply by coughing and sneezing. So if you're on a jet, and I'm on a jet quite often, and someone sneezes 10 rows back, you are going to get covered in what they sneeze and cough out, because it goes up into the aircon and everyone gets basically flooded. So, are we going to have another pandemic? Well, there could be one coming, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the last major pandemic was in 1918, Spanish flu it was called. It killed between 50 and 100 million people worldwide, but my friend Dr. McCullough here says that's not really caused by the virus. The main cause of death in Spanish flu was what's known as a superinfection. I'm sorry about the red there, it's not very clear I don't think. But basically, these people suffered a secondary infection which was caused by a bacteria, Streptococcus pneumoniae. Now it won't surprise you to learn that your new immune system product, our new immune product, will kill Streptococcus pneumoniae very easily. Like falling off a log. It will kill it very, very quickly. So, before we go into any more bacterial data, which we'll do in a few minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit more about viruses. This is the common cold virus. On average, everybody in the Western world suffers between 2 to 5 colds per year. Hands up, anybody who's never had a cold? Nobody? Okay, hands up, anybody who's had several colds in a year? So a few of you. So maybe some of you might have a weakened immunity, because what's happening is you're getting through one infection, and then because your immune system isn't strong enough, you get a second infection from another cold virus. Unfortunately, there are something like 200 different cold viruses. 30% of them are what is known as rhinoviruses, and about 15% of infections are caused by what are known as coronaviruses. Stress is now seen as also as a major factor for causing susceptibility to infection, and the immune system's specific response is great, but unfortunately with the common cold virus there are something like 200 different varieties, and I can never understand why the vaccinations are given, because no one knows what cold virus is coming in the coming winter. And yet the vaccines are made up a year before. So I think the British government spent, I don't know, £100 million on flu shots, and none of them got used because it was the wrong virus. So you do have to be a little bit careful with flu shots. I'm of an age now where I get a letter from my doctor saying, Peter, you should come and have your flu shot. And I send a letter back saying, thank you, but I don't need it. So, unfortunately, at least the headlines like this, I'm sure you've seen them all around in your press as well as our press. Common cold viruses, boost your defences and defeat the enemy. It is like a war, okay? It's probably not quite as dangerous as our wonderful troops who fight for us in Afghanistan and other places around the world. But even those guys suffer from bacterial infections. You'd be surprised to learn that in the soil in Afghanistan, there's a bug that causes a major chest infection, and unfortunately a lot of troops have suffered from that, and our thoughts go out to them, and fortunately they do get better, so that's good, I suppose. Anyway, this is what's coming. This is where I'm supposed to scare you, okay? It is a coronavirus. It's already around. It started in China just a few months ago, but the really worrying statistic is that at the moment this H7N9 has a 22% kill rate. 22% of people that get infected die. Wow. So, drawing the analogy with the United States, if 100 million people were infected, which is not unreasonable, then 22 million would die. If it were a pandemic and the vast majority of Americans got infected, that's what, 350 million? Then you'd be looking at 66 million deaths. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's coming. So you make your own judgment on that. It's probably best to get protected against coronaviruses. And in the last slide we saw SARS is a coronavirus. Olsen, which we're going to talk about in a minute, kills SARS and coronaviruses. Your immune product will kill coronavirus. It will also kill the laughter in the back of the hall there. Thank you. That was outside, actually. We know that it'll kill herpes virus, for example. We're sure that it'll kill parainfluenza virus, Smallpox virus, fortunately we don't see too many cases of smallpox, but it is susceptible. This is all data that's recorded on the National Institute for Health website, by the way. You just have to search Olsen and you'll find it. Human rhinoviruses, we've already known, and also vesicular stomatitis virus. So this is the product. I personally think it looks absolutely fantastic. I'm very impressed with the packaging. And this is what it will do. Now, you remember I showed you these blood slides a few minutes ago? Well, what I didn't tell you then was that this is a patient of mine, and this was before treatment with our new immune product. And you know what the next slide is? This was after 1 cap a day for 30 days.
Wow.
Look at the difference, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to clear up your blood, improve your immunity to infection, what are you going to do? Exactly. How many do you need to take? One a day. Now you can take more, obviously, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think, you know, the first data from your unique product, our unique product, is that you can improve the quality of your circulating blood in 30 days significantly. Okay? So, let's go on and look at a bit more data specifically on allicin, which is highly appropriate for the immune product because it contains allicin. This was the first study that was conducted in 2001. 146 volunteers, double-blind, placebo-controlled. You know what that means. It's a gold standard type study. The volunteers don't know what they're taking. The researchers that give them the product don't know whether they're giving an active or a placebo. So it's blinded. They took 1 capsule a day for 12 weeks. And, oh, well, we can go through this. We've done this already. You know it's common cold. Oh, okay, I should maybe point this out. It's appropriate. The common cold costs national economies huge sums of money and lost working days. You know what happens if you're working for somebody. Fortunately, most of us aren't anymore, which is good. And that means we can't afford to get ill because we don't get paid by anybody if we're ill. But you know what happens when someone's working for somebody? They phone up on Monday morning and say, "Oh, you got a really bad cold. I can't go into work." Okay. And the employer goes, "Oh, what do I do now?" 3 or 4 days later, the guy phones up again and says, "Oh, it's getting better, but I still feel really rough. I'll see you next week." And these people are off for usually a week. Interestingly, you'll see in a minute, the data suggests that if you take just 1 immune per day, you'll get better much faster than a week. So we owe it to ourselves and to the national economy to keep America and Great Britain working. And certainly taking the immune will do that for you. So here's the eureka moment, the results. 1 cap a day, that was all. And here it is. So you can see immediately, in the active group, there were 24 colds. So it doesn't cure the common cold in every instance. You wouldn't really expect it to do that. There are some good reasons that you can argue on the protocol of the study as to why that was the case. But look at the placebo takers. 65 colds, 2.5 times as many. So immediately I can say to all of you, if you take just 1 cap of immune every single day, you are 60% less likely to catch a cold. Okay? That's a big figure. Imagine how many customers we could say that to. Do you want to stop getting colds during the summer and the winter? Yeah. Or just take 1 of these a day. The retention rate on this type of product is huge. Once people get onto it and realize that they're fit and healthy, when all around them are getting sick, they don't want to be without this type of product. And that's one of the key features of your new immune product. So the stats, for those of us in the pharmaceutical industry, P0.05 means that if you repeat that study 500 times, you'll get the same result, so it's not a fluke. Okay? The second piece of data that came from the study was the number of days that patients had symptoms. So that's coughing, sneezing, runny eyes, runny nose, headaches, feeling miserable. And you can see here, in the placebo group, it took on average 5 days to recover from their common cold. But in the active group, okay, there were only 24 colds, but look, they all got better in just a day and a half. So that's incredibly quick. That's as quick as some of the antiviral drugs that you find in the pharmaceutical industry. And again, the stats prove a highly significant difference between the groups, which means it's a genuine result. Now, those two data sets show you that this product will kill virus. But the third piece of data that came from this study was really interesting. It showed that there was a big difference between the number of repeat infections. And you know what it's like, even if it's not you, you know somebody who gets a cold, they get better, they come back to work, they get another cold. It's very common indeed. The more you ask that, the more people you'll find that will say, oh yeah, that's me. Well, look at the difference between the two groups. In the placebo group, there were 16 reinfections. In the active group, only 2. So that's telling us that this product not only kills virus, but it protects you from catching another one. So it's a preventative treatment, and it's a treatment. Okay? So you should be selling it as a preventative. Don't tell people, well, when you get a cold, buy some Immune and take one. Tell them to be on it every single day and you won't get a cold. That's the key feature to remember. So that was the first trial we did. Yes, EPX Immune will prevent the common cold. It will reduce the severity of symptoms. You will see a reduced reinfection rate. You could save millions of dollars to the US economy. It is incredibly well tolerated and may offer lots of other advantages to the immune system. The manufacturer, recommended dose is what we're going to be talking to people about. And the addition of various other extracts, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, are a logical combination because of synergy. Synergy is a concept that's well understood in the drug industry. Most pharmaceutical antibiotics are tested to see whether they can be added to other antibiotics and have synergy. The reason for that is that the bugs are so clever, we now have to use several different antibiotics to kill them. So you need synergy between those pharmaceutical antibiotics. You either get true synergy or an additive effect or no synergy. But with our new immune product, you get synergy between all 3 ingredients. They all contribute together like a sort of SWAT squad, so the 3 together are much better than taking the 3 agents separately. So, here they are. Number 1 is Olsen, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I'm going to lose my voice in a couple of minutes too. That won't be the end of the presentation, because hopefully I'll get it back. But the second is beta-glucan, and the third is ester C. We heard a little bit about vitamin C from Carol this morning. She was very good at showing us what vitamin C can do. I would completely concur with everything she said, and we'll just go through that very quickly because you've already learned that, so that's good. But let's go and talk a little bit about Olsen. Stabilized Olsen comes from fresh garlic. It's proven as antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal. It affects both the innate and the adaptive immune system. It's also a proven anti-parasite. That includes things like liver flukes, giardia, enantiamoeba, various other parasites that are really quite nasty and you really don't want to have them. Apparently 40% of American men carry intestinal parasites all the time. Again, a big group to look at. And you do get this ability to kill, to improve the immune system. What we've learned about Olsen in the last 10 years is this preventative effect is through increasing the number of CD4 T cells, the killer cells that your immune system needs to be able to prevent you from getting sick. And obviously we get synergy with other ingredients. So here we're just going to get a little bit of a technical explanation for you. I happen to have in my pocket 4 of Las Vegas's best garlic cloves. So you know You know what a garlic bulb looks like, you know what a garlic clove looks like. So in the middle of every clove, there's a compound called allanase enzyme, and around that central core in every single cell, there's another compound called alleine. And these are garlic's natural defense mechanism. It's the dynamic duo of garlic. It's the garlic protector. So what happens is when you cut or crush or cook or boil or chop or stir fry or eat in a minute your garlic, as I'm going to do, you basically pull these two chemicals together, and the first thing you make is allicin. Oh, whoops, wrong one. So here we are. The alleine and the allanase enzyme react with each other and they start producing allicin. Allicin is a genuine antimicrobial. It's incredibly powerful. The enzyme doesn't need to produce much of this allicin because it's so powerful and so potent. So come on, let's make some. Anybody else want to do this with me? Maybe not. I'll do it. Okay, I'll take a risk. I wouldn't recommend eating too much fresh garlic if I were you.
Oh my.
Because as soon as you do that, it starts to burn the back of your throat. Oh, and your tongue starts to get really, really aggressively hard. And you start to lose your voice as I'm doing now. So I do apologise.
Do it as a demonstration.
Oh, gosh. Christopher Ranch, that's a damn good garlic. So what I've done is I have just combined those two agents, and I've now got a little bit of allicin in my throat. And, okay, if I had a sore throat, it would be gone in 5 minutes, no problem at all. But I'm beginning to recover, so that's good. See, that wasn't too bad. But what's happening now is there's a very complex chemical reaction happening in my throat. The alleine and the allanase have come together. They've started to release a little bit of allicin in my throat. I need a bit more water, sorry. And that allicin, because it's not been stabilized, is breaking down in my throat and forming lots of sulfur chemicals. We know quite a few things about allicin because obviously we've been working on it for a number of years. But in fact, the data on allicin goes back thousands of years into ancient Egypt, where garlic was used to prevent disease. Now, they had no idea what an immune system was in those days, but they did know that something could affect people and cause disease and spread amongst the population really quickly. So we know over those years, many, many groups, my own research group and other groups around the world, have proven that allicin is antibacterial. It's basically able to kill both gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. It's definitely antiviral, as we've already seen in that common cold study. It's definitely antifungal. A lot of the pharmaceutical drugs are very efficient at killing fungal infections, but sadly, the fungal infections come back again and again and again. Most women will know this if they've suffered from thrush or a yeast infection, that it's very easy to get rid of, but it never stays away completely. It always comes back again and again and again. We know that there is anti-cancer activity. This is the Iowa Women's Study. It's a very famous study where they follow 42,500 women in Iowa, and they look at their consumption of fresh fruit and vegetables. And they look at what these women suffer from over their life. It's a long-term study. It's been going on for years. An epidemiological survey. And basically, the strongest relationship is that the women who eat the most garlic in their diet have the lowest rates of stomach and esophageal cancer. So something in the garlic definitely has anti-cancer activity. Now, I'm not going to make a claim for cancer here this afternoon, but I can tell you that if you have the mother substance, the allicin, which we do, then you will get all of the other components that come from allicin when it gets into your bloodstream. So therefore, there's likely to be some very interesting studies coming out over the next 5 to 10 years, some of which we're doing already in these very key areas where we want to see some benefit. Perhaps for patients who are on chemotherapy, but just want to boost their natural immunity. We've learned already today, haven't we, that this is an immune product, so it could be added in to customers who really don't want to give up the pharma side, but want to do as much as they can to recover as quickly as they can. So you need a good immune booster, and that's what we're talking about now, isn't it? Okay, I'm not going to talk much about cholesterol or blood pressure. You know, you've got your lovely cardio product, which I was again very impressed with this morning. And obviously we know that Olsen will help to normalise blood sugar levels. I'm a diabetic, by the way. I don't think it does much for my blood sugar levels, but I'm sure it certainly doesn't do anything detrimental. And this is the interesting thing. We know that Olsen helps to reduce fat buildup, particularly in coronary arteries. There was a little study done a few years ago where we looked at Olsen in the diet. So we looked at people that had a big, full Las Vegas breakfast. So with the sausage and the ham that's like this thick, and the corned beef hash and all of that lot, you know, a fairly high cholesterol, high fat breakfast. The one group that took the Olsen capsules absorbed 30% less fat from that meal than the group that didn't take the Olsen. So again, I'm thinking here, and excuse me, Dan, but this could be a very good addition to the weight loss products. So if you're going to get on and do the fitness thing like I'm going to, and add in a weight loss product, then I personally would add in the immune one as well, definitely. So, beta-1,3-D-glucan, this is the second agent. Beta-glucans are very potent immune modulators. Again, they both affect the innate and the adaptive immune system. But what they can do is they really activate the innate system. And you remember we said that it doesn't respond very, very quickly. But with beta-glucan, you're going to regulate that response and get it kicked into action. So if you are suffering from an infection, you want your immune system to be able to work and react as quickly as possible. So beta-glucan will do that for you. It's also very good at improving the way that you phagocytose. So that's where the immune system comes along and eats everything up and digests it and gets rid of all the rubbish. So you can improve that with beta-glucan. It's also pro-inflammatory, so that's very good. In other words, it helps to reduce inflammation in the body. And again, from Carol this morning, we learned that inflammation is possibly the key to many disease states, particularly cardiovascular disease. So wouldn't it therefore make sense to add the immune system into cardio as well? So I'm trying to show you here that this is a very useful addition to the EPX range, and that there are lots of people that will benefit not just from one product, but from 2 or even 3 products. So what else can beta-glucan do? Well, we know that it increases the production of white cells. I mean, this is all data that's been around for years. You can go and find it on the internet. It does reduce the allergic response to pathogens. It reduces blood cholesterol significantly. It does improve your digestive system and reduces tissue damage and arthritis. And obviously it's naturally occurring and biologically active. In other words, it can kill things. Okay? I've lost track of my time, so please give me a 5-minute warning when I've got 20 minutes. Where have I seen that before? Okay. The third ingredient is ester C, or vitamin C, but calcium ascorbate. This is particularly one of the best forms of vitamin C. I personally have done clinical research on this particular extract. I didn't actually give you my history, but I've been involved in the natural health industry for 25 years now, and I've concentrated on clinical research, trying to put proof behind branded products to show that they actually do things. So I've worked on, obviously, garlic, green tea, ginkgo biloba, phosphatidylserine, St. John's wort, cellulose, all sorts of things. I've looked at under controlled clinical conditions to try and prove whether they have any genuine benefits. So I've got a lot of experience in this area, and certainly ester C was one I was really interested in, because a lot of people do complain about upset stomachs when they take vitamin C, particularly if you take the sort of recommended dose, which is 1 gram or even 2 grams a day. You do run the risk of some fairly uncomfortable side effects. Now, we never need to use that kind of quantity in these types of products. It's just not necessary. But Ester-C is brilliant at giving you 24-hour immune support. Again, it will increase your white cells. It's non-acidic and therefore very stomach-friendly. It again works on both types of our immune system, and it's a cofactor, as we heard this morning from Carol, in lots of enzymatic reactions. And again, of course, it does synergize with the other ingredients in the immune product. So this is what we know Ester-C can do. It is a powerful antioxidant. It is a vasodilator. This is interesting. It does reduce lead toxicity. A lot of people in today's world worry about heavy metal toxicology. You know, there's a lot of heavy metals in the environment. There's a lot of heavy metals in tooth fillings and this sort of thing. People worry about it dramatically. So again, that's worth bearing in mind. This is also very important. Vitamin C is very good at improving blood flow to your eyes, and that's very good at helping to potentially prevent cataracts and obviously a raised intraocular pressure. 10 minutes. Thank you, sir. I'm sure I can do that. We've only got the bugs to go through, only the bacteria. So here we go. This is the active supplement. We've seen it before, but I want to point out to you that it's only EPX worldwide that will have this product. Nobody else has this product. It's ours. That means it's going to be great in Korea, it's going to be great in the US, it's going to be great in Malaysia, it's going to be great in Ghana, it's going to be big in Canada, it's going to be massive in the UK, because I'm in it now. But I thought that was worth pointing out, because some people said to me, you know, oh, this thing's been around for a while, hasn't it? No! This is yours. This is my formulation for us. So, hopefully, we can show you some other reasons why you might want to take it every single day. We've looked at the antiviral activity, let's look at the antibacterial activity. It is a synergistic formulation. It does have a broad spectrum of activity against bacteria. This is a controversial question about resistance, but what we'll need to know is how does allicin in particular work to prevent bacterial enzyme production. So I'm going to do a little demonstration here. So, if you've got an upset stomach, that's going to be an E. coli bug. What happens is if you take an antibiotic to get rid of that bacterial infection, antibiotics tend to be very big molecules. Okay? They come along and they find the E. coli bug and they think, aha, it's an E. coli, it's got receptor sites in certain positions, I'm going to bind on the receptor site. Bang, bang, bang. They bind and that prevents the bacteria from replicating and it dies away. Sadly, bacteria are very, very clever at evolving and moving those sites around. And this is where you develop bacterial resistance. And in the last 2 years, we've even seen some of the top shelf antibiotics, like the imipenems, become resistant to certain bacterial infections. And that's because the bugs learn. They learn how to avoid attack from antibiotics. Now, allicin is a very small molecule. So it comes along, it's got a molecular weight of 162 for any nerds in the audience. It comes along, and it can see the receptor sites, but it doesn't care about them because, bang, it penetrates the cell wall of the bacteria and gets inside. And once it's inside the cell wall, it stops the bacteria from releasing the proteins and enzymes it needs to replicate. So it's a smart molecule. It kills from the inside out. And that's why, so far, microbiologists around the world who've tested this in the usual environment in hospitals have not yet found a bug that is resistant to allicin. I kid you not. Everything from E. coli to pseudomonas. So that means we could have a go at some problem infections. We're going to be looking at something you know as MRSA in a minute, in my last 5 minutes. And obviously, the immune product is natural, safe, and effective. So here's some common bugs that you probably know a little bit about, but not a lot. We'll put them all up because time is short. And then we'll say, well, okay, streptococcus, where do you, oh, how did that happen? Woo! Streptococcus, where do you get a strep infection? In your throat, yeah? Streptococcus pyogenes is not a strep throat, it's the bug that will eat your arm off in half an hour. So you don't really want to catch that bacteria. Fortunately, most pharmaceutical antibiotics will kill that quite comfortably, so the chances of our product ever being used in hospital to do that are pretty low. But here is the figure that's important. 8 parts per million. That's the concentration of Olsen, or EPX body immune, required to kill this particular infection. Minimum inhibitory concentration. Now that's actually not what's important, it's the minimum bactericidal concentration. You want to kill the bug out completely, but if you look at this as being the key figure, if you double these figures, then that's the MBC, and in the immune product, you will deliver a minimum of 200 parts per million Olsen.
Wow.
Now that doesn't mean that one cat will kill an infection, but what it does mean is that you will kill that infection provided you add enough immune and you take it for long enough. In other words, it's sensitive to the agents that you're dosing. Okay? So, Staphylococcus aureus we're going to talk about in a minute in more detail. Listeria, E. coli, salmonella. So that's poorly cooked meats. That's holidays in the Dominican Republic. No offense meant to anybody from that country. That's cruises down the Nile in Egypt. In fact, cruises anywhere in the world. Have we got any cruisers in? Anybody like to go on a cruise? Yeah, one or two. Well, for goodness sake, when you get on that boat, take some immune product with you, please. Because if you catch the norovirus, or you get a bug that's going around the ship, everybody goes down with it, and it makes it a nightmare. So these things you can get rid of very quickly. The best way to do this is to take a big dose in one go. So you would need 6 to get rid of an upset stomach where you're vomiting or you've got diarrhea, or you may have both if you're very unlucky. But if you take 6 in one go, and then you may need to take another 6 a few hours later, I promise you it will go. The last two are a little bit more difficult to kill, well, Clostridium is anyway. Clostridium is a sort of bug of the moment in the UK, it's everywhere in UK hospitals. And then here, Helicobacter pylori, well, we know that this is the acid-fast bacteria that potentially can cause stomach ulcers, and that can also potentially lead on to even more potential problems for the person that's got the ulcer. But you can see here only 8 parts per million is needed to kill Helicobacter. Now your doctors now have a breath test, so they can tell you whether you've got H. pylori really quickly. They might then ask you to pay for a prescription for an acid suppressant drug and 1, 2 or 3 antibiotics. The drug industry themselves admit that this regimen is only 25% effective. So, unfortunately, 3/4 of patients will come back and won't get rid of that infection. So far, we haven't had any problems getting rid of Helicobacter pylori. Right, so finally we're going to talk in the last 5 minutes about Staphylococcus aureus. It's a bug that's everywhere. It's on the tables that we're sitting at. It's certainly on the carpets. It's on every pet. Who's got a pet at home? Okay, it's on all dogs, all cats. Most pets carry it, certainly horses carry it. It's on your computer screens, it's on telephones. 1 in 3 carries Staph aureus up your nose. 1 in 3 of you. If you're a healthcare worker, doctor, nurse, or porter, radiology, 1 in 2. 50% of the healthcare population carries Staph aureus. Do we screen everybody in the healthcare system to find out if they're carrying a bacterial infection? No. Why is that important? Because what happens is, nurses and doctors get colds, unless they're on the immune product. They go onto the ward, they sneeze because they've got a cold, and they're known as cloud carriers. So So they sneeze out their virus, which isn't very friendly, not for the patient lying there with a hip operation, but they also sniff out their Staphylococcus aureus. And it gets onto the clipboard at the end of the bed, it gets onto the bed linen, it gets onto the Hickman line, it gets onto the drain, it gets onto the catheter, it gets onto the patient's hair and their clothing. So, unfortunately, Staph aureus is very good at worsening clinical symptoms. It's also responsible in things like acne, eczema, and psoriasis. These people have great difficulty getting rid of these conditions because they have a secondary infection caused by Staph aureus coming out of their nose and infecting the areas where they're suffering from those conditions. And if you talk to any teenager who's got acne, they'll go straight down the drugstore, they'll buy creams, lotions, potions, everything they can think of. All of those acne treatments contain an antibiotic. That antibiotic has not killed Staph aureus for 40 years. So, realistically, you're not likely to help the underlying condition if you can't get rid of the secondary infection. And certainly, in some cases, one of our patents is shown that if you add allicin in particular to pharmaceutical antibiotics, you can improve their capacity to kill enormously, and that could could improve the fact that unfortunately topical steroids don't work so well when antibiotics are dosed at the same time. So we are working on that part of our patent. We're talking to some big players about whether we can assist even the pharmaceutical industry. So maybe that will happen over the next 5 years. We'll see. Right, I'm worried about the time now, so I'm going to move on very quickly. This is what Staph aureus looks like under the microscope. It looks beautiful golden colour, like the sunshine outside, which none of us have seen today. We don't mind that. Hence the name aureus. But if I ground stain it dark, then it also looks like bunches of grapes, which is the other name for Staph aureus. It's a lovely looking bug. It looks really great under the microscope. I love it. But unfortunately, it has this capacity to evolve into something a little bit more comfortable. So it can change its shape and structure, and it can do that inside your body, even if you're carrying a Staph aureus that is not harmful to you. And most of the species are not harmful. You like it likes you. But once it gets into your bloodstream, for whatever reason, it can change its shape and structure. And when it does that, unfortunately, it's known as a pus-producing cocci. Sounds horrible. But what that means is it has to release a pus. So once it's invading your body and eating up your healthy cells, it's releasing this toxin, this pus, that you have to get rid of. Now, often that's in a wound. If you've had a hip op that won't heal, or a knee joint, or anything like that. But quite often, and I've seen hundreds of cases like this now around the world, it's people who wake up in the morning thinking they've got a lung disease, coughing out a yellow phlegm. That is Staph aureus. And what's happening is at night you're laying prostrate, the bacterial infection is building up on your lungs, you get up in the morning, and out it comes. So you need to get rid of that, and our immune product will do that. And this leads to headlines like this in the UK press, where we now talk about Mr. Staph aureus, or MRSA, as you know. Now, even now in Great Britain, we have community-acquired MRSA. I know it's a major problem in the United States. I've spoken to several people in this audience in the last 24, 36 hours who have had Staph aureus infection. I've spoken to most of them who've recovered, which is obviously great news. But when you question people carefully, you will find lots and lots of people out there that are harbouring a little wound somewhere, maybe on their ankle, or on their hand, or under their arm, that they just can't heal. And that is Staph aureus. Now, what we decided to do was to prove that our compound could kill Staph aureus. So back in 2004, published in a medical science journal, the Journal of Biomedical Science. We took 30 bacterial strains, 12 of them were resistant to pharmaceutical antibiotics. All strains were sensitive to allicin, in other words, the allicin killed all of them. And every year since 2004, my company has had a paper either published or presented at an international medical meeting somewhere in the world. So we've had papers presented in Canada, America, Denmark, Sweden, Australia, Great Britain, all over the world. So we have, my favourite expression, we have a shed load of data to prove that we can kill bugs. Okay? So don't ever worry if someone questions whether the stuff is going to kill a bacterial infection. In fact, my company guarantees to us that every batch that we make of this product is tested against an MRSA bacteria before it leaves our factory in the United Kingdom and comes over the dam, and it's proven to kill that multi-drug resistant strain. That's my guarantee. Okay? Just to back that up, we had a paper published 3 years ago now, 52 case studies from the United Kingdom, Canada and the US, patients with active infections, wound infections that would not heal. This is a 14-year-old girl with 2 wounds in her spine. She had brittle bones, so they put 2 pins in her spine, and they could not heal the wounds. This is a young lady in Canada. They read about us in the press, and I went and visited her parents, who obviously were really worried. I mean, can you imagine what it must be like at 14 to have that on your back every single day? Now, you know, the community staff had done what they could to try and heal the wound. They used everything the hospital could throw at it. They used everything the community medicine people could throw at it, and nothing worked. We basically swabbed her wound under her arms, up her nose and in the groin area, and we cultured them in the lab back in the UK. All of them were tested as double positive MRSA, MRSA, and all of them were sensitive to EPX. Okay? In other words, if we give her the product, she should get better. So we basically gave her 8 a day for 4 weeks, not a topical treatment, oral. She just swallowed the capsules, and yet look, both wounds have healed. So, ladies and gentlemen, in an industry where we are never supposed to say, I can cure that, you can't argue with that as a cure. Because we swabbed her groin, her nasal cavities, her wound site, negative MRSA. Nothing there. She's cured. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes, and we need to look at where we can use EPX Body Immune, diabetes, chronic fatigue syndrome. I'm not going to go into any details because I'm overrunning on time. So if you want to talk to me about how we do that for any of these conditions, come and talk to me during the rest of the evening, and I'll tell you. I will be doing a book that will give you a treatment regimen, a protocol, how to use the product, etc. That will come in the next 6-12 months or so. And I will require your feedback. You know, any stories, good or bad, I want them coming back so that we can look at whether we can get better advice to our customers to get them better. Because a happy customer is a customer that stays with you. Okay, some of your team will buy in because the products are great. Some of them will buy in just because it's you. But if you keep them happy, they'll stay in. And that's what I've learned today. So, cold and flu, allergies, liver problems, Lyme disease. Talk to me about Lyme later. Asthma and other lung problems, ear infections. Make your own gel up with the capsule. I'll tell you how to do that on another occasion. Aging. We know that garlic helps to prevent aging, definitely. I'm really 75. No, I'm not really. But one day I will be. Ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. I'm sorry that there are 2 pages of this. Fibromyalgia, very difficult to treat. Rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis. Not the disease, but a lot of these patients get really bad, simple infections that cause their MS to get much worse. If you can keep them healthy, they have much longer periods of remission. So that's really good for that key group of people that don't have many other options. Hair, skin and nail problems, wrinkles, viral, bacterial and fungal infections, I could have talked about that for a year, diabetic ulcers, radiation burns, various cancer tumours, AMD age-related macular degeneration, and peripheral arterial disease. The list will go on because you will find more, I'm sure. 1 capsule a day for protection. Increase the dose if you already have an active infection. You can add this into any pharmaceutical agent. You won't do yourself any harm. You won't prevent the pharmaceutical agent from doing what it's supposed to do. In some instances, you'll get synergy between the drug and the immune product. So there's no harm in adding it into anything. I promise you that faithfully. Even the things like clopidogrel, Plavix, the blood thinners, Coumadin, you won't find any effect on the clotting rates if you add immune into those types of patients. Okay? Children can obviously take immune, and you should take it with a little cold liquid at meal times. And what we need to do is to prevent our immune system from collapsing by activating it with beta-glucan. We need to be able to eliminate pathogens in your immune system by delivering stabilized allicin. And we need to be able to protect your immune system from repetitive attack by delivering effective vitamin C, which is S/C ascorbate. And so finally, ladies and gentlemen, you can see that we have a unique opportunity to capitalize on the long-established properties of 3 major ingredients that you find in our product alone. No other product in the world will contain these ingredients, and that means that we can add this into the already fantastic range of EPX products that you all have. Thank you very much for listening.